too. I mean, people are always.
They're watching you everywhere.
Well, so again, and here's what I say to you about having this conversation with you, it's like now that you know, when you're in and you're having conversations with your home sellers and even
Mhm.
home buyers. Got these third parties that are taking pictures and literally as soon as you turn in your request for insurance, they're. I just. I just couldn't.
Hi, Peggy.
I couldn't.
Peggy, can you hear me?
So when I go to go look at it, maybe have a call. Fine for you. So it's a family thing, right? But it was just like, seriously? She's like, yeah, she's like, we wanted to write that offer, we wanted that offer to be written, and I'm thinking, of course, this is the one that they accepted. But that was a lesson, again, coming soon property. And so it ends up being an elderly couple that they didn't want to do showings anyway. And they thought, well, we're getting what we want, and here's the other thing. This is what I say. I think that they love money. I think that the sellers have loved money on the table. I really do. I think they could have gotten more money. The lender is able to do an appraisal waiver because of the values of the neighborhood. So again, they go. No, they, I mean, you know how nice their house is because you've been.
Right.
That. They.
Here.
We're having a party. What are you doing? We can start now that you're here.
Going over the buyer's agency agreement.
The new one,
Yeah.
how to write it.
How to explain it.
Do you
how to
know
talk
the top
about
violations? The top 5 violations that are still going on, the division that under investigation?
it. We're gonna talk about that.
I'm sure.
I just think it's just a little fun stuff.
All right, let me grab some.
He's a violator of most.
That's what he said, 4 out of 5.
Oh, okay.
So Lori, that was again.
Now, do you, I mean, do you know that? Now, number 5. That is still on the board. The lessons are
crazy.
hard to learn because they're pretty fierce on this one. It started out pretty light with small fines. And they've kind of stepping up the fines and suspensions on this one here for allowing people into homes that they don't have unauthorized access. So number 4, improper handling of earnest money. It's still, you know, it's in the broker trust account, so there could be several factors. You know, when money doesn't clear, you have a responsibility to notify the other agent on an earnest money that doesn't clear. And you don't say, oh, I just called the buyer to go get another check. Or to get it, now you have to let them know it didn't come, but I'm working on it. These are some of the big things. The 2-year hold period. A lot of times people just hang on to the money because they're obstinate. They're mad that you had to walk away from the deal from some reason, contractually or whatever. I say just get mad and hold the deal. I'm working on one right now, trying to get it resolved. After 2 years, we sent notice in to have the earnest money released, and the title company notified the seller. I go, what does the contract say? It says after 2 years, you release it without interference with the seller. So now I have to go after the title company. Now, you know, now I gotta play hardball, because now the sellers, you stirred the pot with the seller again.
Right.
Yeah.
Almost over.
Completely forgotten about it.
So I'm calling the title company, I'm demanding that earnest money get released. You violated the terms and conditions of the offer. If you have any problems with it, you deal with the seller, but that money needs to go back to the buyer. You know, it's $2,000, they sat for 2 years,
Right.
you know, and it's after the 2-year hold period. It doesn't say you bring up this case after 2 years.
Right.
Or you have for the rest of your life to deal with this. says you've got 2 years to file a complaint. Or not to file a complaint, you have to serve notice. You have to serve notice, or like if you serve notice. That there's a court hearing 30 days from the 2 year, then you're gonna have to hold on until the results come out. But you're 2 years afterwards, they've never notified an attorney. And now they say, oh, we have an attorney now, so you have to hold the money. I go, no, we don't. I go, I have no notice from a court that says I have to hold the money. I don't have to do anything. You know, who cares if you got an attorney? You haven't done anything in 2 years, but it makes you think that you're gonna do something now. So there's all sorts of problems with earnest money. Trust accounts and failing to keep those things balanced, but fortunately enough, we have a good MCA, a great MCA. Property management, you know, we really don't do property management. But that's still on the board. Sometimes agents will want to manage other people's properties because you're doing them a favor. That's property management. You know, in order to do that, you have to have separate trust accounts for your clients, and we're not going to set up. You know, it's a whole other division of real estate. And in order for a company like ours to say that's something that we're going to look deeper into, we're going to need maybe 300-400 accounts. That's, you know, because how do you pay for the management of with only 10, 20, 30 accounts? You can't pay for the management of the system. So that's something like that. But we currently, you know, we have exception, but so I had this always really gets me. You know, when the division of real estate reaches out to you and says, hey, I need you to do something, and you tell the division, don't buzz off, don't bother me. I go, that sounds like some of our political, some of the political things we've heard in the news lately. You know, you get a subpoena from Congress, and you just, I need to show up. I go, what is that all about? Not cooperating with the division of real estate. When they call you, you have an obligation to follow up with them. And if you can't do it like right now, let them know when. They're very flexible. But what they're not flexible is obstinance. You know, when you become obstinate with the division, they put their feet in the sand and you are going down trouble road. Bad behavior, harassment of other parties. You know, agents like to become pretty aggressive. So I mean, that's bad behavior. So conduct of a licensee. And then of course, you know, our number one, look at our number one, still after all these years. Agency disclosure, agency documents, still not being signed. The problem with that is that these agency documents are being signed after the fact. Like at closing, or you know, because then something blows up. And then I go, oh, I need these documents signed. Well, you know, the funny thing is that everything's electronically signed. And so you rush out electronically to go sign it. But it's the date that you signed it, not the date you should have signed it. I mean, if anything, I mean, I hate to say this, but go visit the guy in person and go give him a pen and say, can you like put the date like 4 months ago? Go give me a break here. I mean, you don't want to deceive anybody, but this is a document I need to have. Failure to indicate the listing property owned by the real estate licensee. You know, if you own a property, you're supposed to tell somebody you have ownership in it. Failure to see agency documents and representing other parties you shouldn't be representing. So anyway, these are just little fun things. We just went through the division of real estate, or this is our legal legislative update. And so this is kind of a concluding. We spent most of the class going over this buyer's agency agreement. I mean, I would say 80% of it, so it was just encumbering. So, and you know, we had, if you were at the office meeting today. We had a lot of great questions, you know. Kimberly said, you know, we had really good dialogue today. Well, we have good dialogue because this is all new stuff to us and nobody knows what to do. And we're still trying to figure out as management level licensing, we had to sit down and go over our engagement, or when you come on board, you have our company policy agreement that you sign. We had to go over that. We had to do some editing. So that will be changing, and so there's all sorts of things that we're gonna need to change. Documents, you know, they were asking today, do we have documents? No, actually, we don't have documents. I mean, we're working on them, but right now we don't. And you know, the thing is that right now, the horse is before the cart because the drop dead date hasn't come. So what happens after July 1 if we don't have these documents in order? Now the cart's before the horse. But we're gonna still have to continue to move forward until we have a balance on this. And so we'll continue to work that stuff out. And so the you know what, we have to continue to grow. And your business grows to the extent that you do. When change comes, we have to manage change. We're constantly seeing, and this is real important. I mean, AI, it's our technology is changing so quick today, and AI is way ahead of us. It's amazing. I mean, I can't believe how much I use it now. I will write a document in my own words, and I'm thinking I'm pretty good at this stuff, you know, and I drop it into AI and I go, man, that's good. You know, that's a lot better than I just wrote. I think I'll use yours instead of mine. But so right now we have a lot of things going on. We need to continue to move forward. And the topic on the table today is a buyer's representation agreement. Now, what we have before you is what we have going on right now is and this is coming from the Board of Realtors, is the exclusive buyer's agency agreement. We will have a non-exclusive. We will just have a representation agreement. It will be going over it'll be going over the similar topics we're going to cover today, and but it'll be non-exclusive. Exclusive is like a listing agreement. You finally come to terms, and you work with somebody for a period of given time. And like in all contract writing, there's a beginning and end. So, the idea, this whole thing about this whole buyer's agency agreement is because we're not good at explaining ourselves. We're pretty quick on the shelves, you know, we have, well, like me, I have ADHD, I gotta move on, I gotta keep moving. So I may not be the best at explaining some of these topics, but we all have to slow down and explain our services to our buying clients. And this also applies to your listing side. Did any of you go on Kathy's trip today? How was it? Long.
What time did you
Yeah.
guys leave? What time did you get out of there?
What after 3? No, it was, if you, I don't know about these 2 days. Kathy's classes are. They are.
Yeah.
And she went through the listing presentation, and you know, everybody's been in a listing presentation, right? But she's giving you firsthand knowledge of how to close with other tidbits. And one of those things was, you know, if you found something with one of the other agents you interviewed, call me, let me know. It may be something that I can do that we didn't go over to help you close, you know, to help you get that list. It was interesting because it was focused on that specific property. You know, when you're talking about $1.6 million house with 20 acres, there's specifics. There's CAUV, you know, which is agriculture, you know, you can't grow weed out there, you can't grow corn out there, where it's all wooded. But all the owners had to do was cut down a couple trees, get a tax deduction. So some of the things that never happen for a buyer. On a listing or a listing site, normally that happens, you're not trying to sell it in my neighborhood. You're selling something pretty unique. It was pretty good, you know, there's 3 houses on the driveway. Right? You need an easement from all 3 owners. You don't have the easement, those kind of things, so yeah, it was like. It wasn't all, it started at 1. Get out of there to 3, so I'm like you,
Yeah.
I
Gotta keep moving.
Yeah.
But the idea is that she went into a lot of detail, she did a lot of explanation, and this is where we need to go before we start the game.
Right.
And there's gonna be complications in our conversation, like an easement. Easement could be a roadblock. How do we get through these roadblocks? And through our experiences, we try to discover them and manage them. But what we do know today is that there's and we talked about this in the office meeting today, there's no commission. The amount of the commission you agree to pay your broker is negotiable. You know, that I've always negotiated my commission. I mean, pretty much typically, and sometimes, you know, it was like whatever, 6% or whatever. And sometimes it was 7, sometimes it was 8. And some of my land deals, it was 10. So I mean, it was always negotiable. And it's how good what are you worth? You know, I knew I had to take a deal for 5 years. It surely wasn't 5%, it wasn't 7%. I got to market and talk and go to zoning, and I have to go to township trustee. You know, if I'm going to do all that work for 5 years, then I get paid differently than if I have a 60-day list. So that's the thing there. So there are many compensation models. There isn't one, but you need to know yours. What is yours? Are you going to show somebody, you know, you show 10 homes and 3 of them have, you know, you hardcore know that the seller's not compensating? Are you going to show the houses? I mean, your time is worth something. So, you know, sometimes you might say yes. Kathy said today that she's a hard no, I'm not working for nothing. But, you know, what if somebody, you don't want to have that repeated, and, you know, if I work with you, we put a deal together and there is no compensation, you surely don't want to tell all your friends that I do this, you know. So, you know, there are some decisions you have to make in business. Sometimes that's the deal. But you know, you have to have this conversation. And what we really need to do is say, what is our real life example? Our real life example is saying, you know, and I've been in business, whether it's 1 day or 10 years or 20 years, over the period of time, if it's me, I could say I've closed, you know, hundreds of buyers, and this is the service level that I provided, and blah, 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 blah. If I'm a single agent, I was talking to one of the new guys that came in today, and he has a listing. I was talking about how he needs to use the office. We have an office of 280 some agents, and I'll show you the closed-sided transaction. We closed over 1,200 buyer listings a year as a company. And so, you know, do we have power? We got power. And then they asked me, well, then they asked them, what is Keller Williams closed? That was the question. How many units of Keller Williams closed? So we went to the computer and we pulled up all the closed transactions under Keller Williams. Well, there were 7 offices, but out of the 62 closings, 28 of them were Keller Williams. So the question was answered. We closed almost 50% of the transactions that closed in the last 12 months. So, you know, so you could use the power of many to grow your success. But you need to start out your conversation when you're working with a buyer with your real life examples. How have I helped people in the past? And probably your story is going to include some of those hard deals that you had to work through. So we're going to need to explain our value proposition. And I was saying today that this exclusive whether it's exclusive or non-exclusive, whatever the agreement is, this is just a boilerplate. You need to go into depth. I think what I'm afraid of is that people are gonna go, well, we need to have the agreement signed, and, you know, we have to. I'm afraid that they're not gonna go into the detail that we need to go into. And, you know, we have 300 some agents, 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe you're number 5, you know. So we have a hurdle to get over, and we'll have many of these classes. But remember, July 1, this document needs to be signed. You need to start reading this and go over this, and we're gonna do this, we're gonna do a little practice roll and do some role playing today. But you gotta play the long game. Playing a long game, what does that mean? Playing a long game might mean, hey, I'll show you a couple homes. Even though, you know, our agreement says 3%, and we know that the selling broker is only gonna pay 1%. So is your long game accepting the 1% and getting the deal done for repeat business in the long game? That's repeat business. So, you know, how do you service your client, not just for the immediate today? What is your long game? Understand, you know, the value proposition of servicing a client and maybe having to give up a little bit. Because in the future, you know, you might end up selling homes to their kids. And, you know, 1 generation, 2 generation of kids. I don't think we get to 3. But then again, like I said, you gotta know when to walk away. When does no become the complete sentence? I can't work under this criteria that you wish for me to work on. I'm not gonna do that. So you gotta know when to walk away, but you need to explain why you're gonna walk away and have an understanding. Would you work for nothing? When you go to your office and you work you get paid bi-weekly. Does your boss come to you at the end of the 2nd week and say, hey, by the way, I'm not paying you this week? How long are you gonna work for somebody? I mean, that's the simplicity of the question. But you need to understand, when are you going to walk away? So, as always, you know, it says communicate clearly and often will avoid these misunderstandings. So, some of the commercial deals, I'm talking to these guys twice a week. You know, like when we're putting deals together, it's like, it's constant, and we're moving, editing, we're constantly moving, we're communicating. And you know, some of these deals do take a long time, and at the end of the long time, we're gonna have to ask for an extension. And I don't wanna work a long time and not get the extension on the listing, so communicating is real critical to the value that you bring to the table. I think last week or last couple of weeks, we have a little document put out by Ohio Realtors. It's called the 105 ways that a buyer's agent represents their client. Did you all get that? If not, I got it. So understand that. But here, the other thing is, there's another document that's put out. It's 178 ways that the listing agent represents their client. Hey, there's a couple more. So I think we need to understand both of those in the value proposition. When you're working with a buyer, you have to explain to them why you're a master of understanding the purchase agreement itself and understanding in how many ways can you terminate an agreement in the current purchase contract. Was it like 10, 12, 14 ways? If you don't do this, the buyer can. If the buyer doesn't do this, the seller can terminate. How does the home inspection work? Bless you.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you, sir.
You know, are you a master of the purchase agreement so that when you sit with your buyer, you could absolutely say with confidence, I could protect you through the whole purchase agreement, and let me understand the value that that's going to bring to you. I know there's a shortage of houses in the market today, and that this house really fits your need. It's got the yard for your kids, because today, before you even show the first house, you have to have a buyer consultation and have that document signed. 2 weeks, July 1. This is June. 20th. So it's coming up. So have that conversation, become the master.
So mark all of my buyers,
Pardon me?
all of my current buyers. Right,
Yeah,
current buyers.
Your
Not
current-
currently, yeah.
what about it? How many?
Nine
You got 9 current buyers?
buyers. I have to sit down and have them sign this by July 1st.
The next time, this is the transition zone that we're in. Because remember, you do. The short answer is yes. But this is the transition that we're in right now, is that the next time you're with your buyer and you're kind of running out there and say, hey, I want to take a few minutes of your time. And I want to go over some of the industry changes and some of the industry documentation that's changing. This is nationwide. You probably heard a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But I need to have this conversation with you. And this conversation is going to go over this agreement. So understanding, that's why I want you to read it and read it and read it and read it. So if I call you and say, what does paragraph 3 say? You could say what paragraph 3 says. So you need to go over that and have the understanding why. And during that conversation, part of your value proposition of why you want to sign this today before July 1 is that, you could see that the value I've brought to the table so far. I've been in touch with you, we've been communicating. I know that there's a shortage of inventory. I want, and as soon as we find something, we're ready to move and get it, go look at it, see if it's going to fit your needs. So you're going to have to start having that conversation. So, yes. So 9 of these. 1, 2, I got 4 right here. All right. Do you believe this statement?
Oh, absolutely.
Some agents will not know that the buyer's agency agreement is required for a year. They will continue on and do business. Not all agents are created, not all brokerages are created equal. So how good are you? Because as we read through this today, we're gonna go over this and, it does talk about that the buyer has 7 days that they may choose to de-hire you. You have 7 days that you may choose to de-hire them. It works both ways. So you have that. So you need to really create your value. Come with confidence. Those that have been in the business, Paul George, you think he goes on a listing appointment with confidence? I think he knows every value of every house in every community of his neighborhood. I think, does Kathy walk around with confidence? Do you think she's done this a few times? So those that have been around a long time walk around with confidence because they understand how to negotiate. They understand the terms and conditions of the contract. They know how to protect it. Most of the people that walk around with confidence are the highest earners. They make the most money. They close the most deals. Walk around with confidence because this is what you know. Confidence comes with practice. So practice what we're talking about. When I joined Rotary back in '87. What was it? I think it was 80, 85, 84. So yeah, so I think it was 85. So I joined Rotary and I'm out of college. I've been working for a few years. And Ann and I get married, we go on a honeymoon, and I'm in a room about this size, and it's full of different Rotarians from around the country. We went to St. Martin for the honeymoon. And I had my hands in my pocket like this, and I had change, all sorts of change in my pocket. And so it was my turn to get up and talk to the group about where I was from and what I did, and I'm over here going like this with the change. And the whole room could hear the change jingling in my pocket, you know? And finally the president goes, "Hey, Mark, relax. You take your hands out of your pocket, just tell us where you're from." So that was my first time talking. Now, I'm a little more confident today that I don't do that. I'm not afraid to get up in front of a group of people today. In 1985, I was intimidated a little bit. So experience comes with time and confidence and practice. So develop your ability in negotiating your compensation. Because again, it's going to go back to what we said about earlier. Are you willing to give up a little bit to have some? Or are you willing to be stubborn and have none? These are our choices today. Right? So there's just a few tips we put together for talking with your clients. It's again, I hate to beat the dead horse here, right? Emphasize your value proposition. Okay. Again, I can't go without saying understand the language of this agreement and understand the language of the purchase contract. That is where the hundreds of values come from. You know, you organize the closing, you make sure the closing's on time. I'm calling the seller to make sure they're going to be out of the house. How many times have you guys gone to a closing where the homeowner's still in the house? Mark, what am I gonna do? You're supposed to walk through the house 2 days ago. You could have done that heads up. The problem is, a lot of times people are negotiating agreements in residential is that they're afraid to pull out. We're not closing on Friday. If you're not out of the house by Friday, like the contract says, then we're not going to close. Just want to let you know, I'm here to sign all paperwork, but I'm not closing anything. Funds will not transfer until you leave the property. And I get to have a walkthrough beforehand. People are afraid of that. In commercial, the deal says this, you better do this. Because they too, but you're talking about a bigger deal. Most commercial transactions are $1 million, $5 million, stuff like that. And if you don't perform, people aren't going to spend $5 million if you don't perform. That money will stop dead in its tracks. The bank's going to make sure because the bank's not going to release money if we don't have a clean deal. When you get even higher, in the higher dollar amounts, it even becomes more critical to follow the timeline and the expectations. So highlight the benefits of the written agreement. Now, I don't mean getting a highlighter, but you could. You need to understand and say, here's the value of this agreement. I'm going to go over my responsibilities to you, and I'm going to go over your responsibilities to me. And together we're going to work as a team. And this is the value proposition. We're going to talk about how brokers get paid today. What does the compensation structure look like? Who pays for it, and the obligations. So what is the value proposition? So you want to highlight the written values of that, and again, this is your value proposition is your spoken word and how you can explain that. Now you can highlight it, give them a copy, sure. Or outline your compensation terms in writing. So so you need to go over what the history is. Typically in the history of homes, the sellers had an X amount of percentage, and half of it went to the listing agent, and the other half went to the buying agent. Outline your terms. So now the way it's going to work is that the seller is gonna pay the listing agent money. And we will find out if the seller will also compensate the buyer's agent. But in the event that if the seller doesn't compensate the buyer's agent, our agreement says that, we're gonna have an agreement that you're gonna pay me. So keep in mind, I know that just shocked you, but that allows us also to negotiate the opportunity in the price of the house. So if we understand that the seller's, not gonna pay that $15,000 for that $500,000 house commission that we deserve. We can negotiate that contract and reflecting within the contract that the buyer will pay the buyer's broker's compensation. So you don't have to put any numbers, you don't have to put anything in there, but how are we gonna negotiate that? This is a whole nother class. What are some of the terms that we could write in contract? It's just,
now. Like I said, I've got $5.
yeah,
I need that class, man.
you get it now.
Yeah.
Are you recording this? I'm recording this, so when I speak, let you go back and write it down. So. Write it down. Agree to it. And become compassionate that, I understand that it's an additional $15,000, but I'm expressing the value that I bring to the table. I know you're busy at work and you're a corporate officer, so basically you're repeating what you know and these things. Believe me, if you're an executive, you don't want to have to be dealing with this stuff. We don't want to have to be dealing with this stuff, but we have to. This is our job. So. In the event that you are showing the property now on August 17th, you will no longer see any forms of compensation in the MLS. That whole category will be gone and everyone will be guessing. So in the event that before I went out and we're going to look at these homes, you and I are going to have that agreement. This agreement will be signed and this is how I'm going to get paid. Okay. And then so in this process, one of the things that I'm going to be doing for you, this is part of my job, is to protect your interests and your financial position and the investment of the house, right? So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to call every listing agent because they're not telling me if they will compensate, but I am going to call them to find out if there is any fee being paid. I know.
Great, now they have to answer their phone, they're not gonna do that.
Texting. The texting is incredible. But so I'm gonna find out. Now, what will happen is, let's say my agreement, again, just for the purposes of this class, these are no fixed numbers. Our company does not have a fixed commission rate. But for the purpose of this class, I've agreed to this agreement, and it might say we're gonna have 3% of the compensation of the agreed upon sale price. And so I call the listing agent, I find out, well, they only got 2% in there for the buyer's agent. You also have that obligation to then let the buyer know, hey, by the way, our compensation says 3, and we found out that the seller will only pay us 2. You still want to show this house? Are you willing to compensate for the difference of 1%? Okay. Yes, no, get it in writing. Get it in writing. So. You have to let the buyer know if there's a variance in the compensation.
I have a question about that. So if you cannot disclose in the MLS after the 17th of August, is there any place else that we can put it out there? Can you do it in showing time?
No, you do it on your website.
You can do it on your website. You're gonna watch Facebook just blow up. Everyone's gonna say, here's what you do. You got a sign. I'd go out and go get 10. How many listings you guys got? You got 10 listings?
Put on the actual sign, will co-op
Well, go up.
3% or whatever.
You can say on there,
So you can put it on the sign.
The seller appreciates buying agents.
Okay,
You know, something to say, kind of give you a clue. You know, I can't tell you, you know, because then I don't want to tell you every time you get a listing. It's almost, remember the old lockbox days, that if Mark had a lockbox, my combo would have been MAS.
Yeah.
Well, and then you go to my listing and say, well, that's Mark's listing, his combo is MAS, every listing, you know. So you don't want to do that, you're gonna fix Mark's compensation factor. But will co-op. Just simply saying, will co-op, that will be sufficient for somebody to say. Texting, Jill, what does that number look like on the co-op on 1, 2, 3, 8? And you're gonna say 5%, we want to get rid of this. And you're gonna go. And you're gonna go. I left 2% on the table because my agreement says 3, you can't get any more. You can't be paid any more than what your agreement says. I didn't like that, that really got you.
can you write it can you write it?
Right,
This-
it's not a company offer.
Yeah, but can you write it in here 3% unless more is being provided by.
You have to be specific.
On property or
Yes,
specific,
yes.
like if I say.
Yeah.
It is 3% unless additional compensation is provided by a seller. And would that be
No,
suffice?
you have to say how much.
Okay,
You left it, so there's an open window there. I don't know how wide the window is open. Is it open 1% or is it open this percent? So you have to be specific. So if you're working with new builds, like some new builders are gonna give you a bonus. So if you're out shopping new builds and you know, in the ad, it says, you know, buyer's agent bonus of $5,000, I'm gonna say my compensation factor is 3% and a builder bonus of $5,000. Up, you know, a building bonus of up to $5,000. I don't even know if you could use up to. But if it's, let's say $5,000, my builder's bonus is $4,000, then I'm okay. But the builder's bonus is,
But if you had them sign this already, to Jill's point. And they get into the bill, it's a 5,000 bonus, then you just have to sign a new one.
right,
include
can we go
5,000
back and
bonus.
amend it? Thank you so much. Thank you.
it's 92 degrees outside.
I know, but it's freezing in
No.
here.
No, it's not.
Thanks, David.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you so much.
I have so many questions about this. So I've been in traffic, but I've been driving for 2 hours. Is there?
You only
going to
get
be-
one because you didn't get here.
Okay, is there going to be a uniform phrase that Keller Williams will approve? That will allow us agents to make a request of the seller in the offers that we're making?
We were talking about having clauses established.
Please, is that, I mean, but is that on the
No.
agenda for Keller Williams?
So it could say, number one, the phrase would say, blah, 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 this underlying score, you fill in the blank. Something like that, because we can't say, compensation factor is to be 3, because now the company's fixing. That, what are you, is that what you're talking about?
I am, but just because I write in 3 or 2 or 7,
Yeah,
that's not fixing in any way. That's.
no, it's what you write in, no,
Correct.
you have to write it in,
Correct.
we can't,
Right, no, but I'm just saying like everything blah, 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 blank.
right,
And then I can put it in and that would still be contingent upon what I've agreed with my buyer in the representation agreement. Right, that in the event that and the way that I think Kathy explained it, in the event that the seller is willing to compensate me 2% or above, then you as the buyer do not have to compensate me. In the event the seller is paying less than 2%, you, my buyer, has to pay me the difference between whatever they're offering and 3%.
right. So in here, so you have to be specific in the agreement. So if your
Yeah,
compensation is 4,
sure,
and the buyer's agent, and I agree 4 is fine with me, I'm good.
sure.
And then I go to the listing agent, and the listing agent says 2. Then you have to inform the buyer that, hey, by the way, the listing agent was only gonna pay us 2. Are you good with the other 2%?
Right.
And then at that time, what if they say no? Are you gonna say, well, wait, I'm not, then this deal is off the
Well,
table.
I've already written the offer at that point, like, we're SOL, you know.
Yeah, well, see now here, you will know that number before you write the offer. Because this is saying, what they're telling us is that the buyer before the showing of the property, if there is an offer of compensation that does not cover the buyer agreement, so. This happens before the showing itself, before you begin writing the offer. So I'm gonna go, David, I'm gonna show you property 123 Main Street, what is your compensation? And you're gonna tell me, hey, Mark, it's only 2% on this one here, thank you very much, I look forward to you showing the property. I gotta go back to my buyer and say, I know we have an agreement of 4, but they're only paying 2, is that good for you? Are you willing to cover that gap?
Sure, but now I have to call every single list agent and ask for the compensation for showing it. I got people, I'll show 10 houses to in a day. It's a complete waste of time.
And he was saying that what we'll do when we list,
Yeah,
when you list,
yeah.
is you
Put
blast
it all over your sign.
Facebook and all over your social media.
Yeah.
We're paying
So-
2%,
If
or we're paying 2.5%.
But
You can't put it on the MLS.
there's gotta be a way so that I'm not, if I have a listing and I got 20 agents calling me to ask me freaking how much are you compensating us? It's a waste of time.
It's gonna be,
It's gonna be too.
I don't have the true answer to that one.
But yes, is the dumbest thing, well, attorneys.
Well, you know,
Right, no,
I thought the
listen,
system was working pretty well.
it was working spectacular, and even if it's 0, the sellers don't wanna compensate, just put freaking 0 on it. That's okay, at least I know I'm not wasting time making calls, or with my listings, I'm getting freaking 30 agents calling and texting me, hey, how much you compensate, how much you
But
compensate?
now you're gonna be on your phone looking at Facebook to look at their compensation factor.
If I'm Facebook friends with 10,000 freaking stupid agents that, oh, God. This is the dumbest thing I ever heard. Well, and there's a lot of dumb shit, that's, this is about the dumbest.
The
This is
part
the top of the list.
the jury were not.
Thank you.
Yes, that was.
Can I ask a question?
Have you ever sold a house? Oh, I'm sorry, you wrong thing. Oh,
Yeah.
I'll keep the case to it.
Dave, are you meeting somebody? Okay.
Oh, I just finished with the closing interview, Cyrus.
Yeah.
Cause I'm a whore and imagine me not.
Somebody trying to get
Yeah,
it.
we got somebody at the.
Oh, I'll get them, sit, yeah, so let's do.
Can you hear me?
Peggy, who's asking a question?
Kenzie Gerhart.
Go ahead, Kenzie. What's that? Question.
So something was mentioned today, at when I was at the CE training at the board, the law training. They said in regards to like the new NAR thing that they don't want us to post like any commission at all, like on any website, in order to like prevent antitrust. Is that true, or do you want us to post it on some type of website?
So
Because
what she's asking is, we can't post it on the MLS, right? We can't post our compensation on the MLS.
Right.
But she's learned at the board, but you can't
Can't
post
post
it
it on-
anywhere
Social media.
on social media.
yeah, the people from Talon were saying that
Your social
they-
media, it all has to do with your properties linking to the MLS. So
yeah,
if I'm gonna post on my website, that's fine. I don't have, well, geez, I do have an IDX link.
Yes, you do.
Or let's say Facebook, I drop a picture in there and I can say, we'll compensate. But there's still some clarity. We're gonna have to figure out all that out, and that's a good one, because I know my website does have an IDX link to the MLS. That's why I go, that's what you want. You wanna get all the properties on your site, so you stick around.
so just don't post anything regarding compensation at all.
Hey, Kenzie, is this Stump the Broker?
Huh?
Yeah.
I'm confused. What did you say?
Is it stump the broker? You stumped him.
Oh, I'm sorry.
don't have-
Everybody was confused today in the class, so we didn't like. This was kind of the conversation we were having too.
Yeah, I know it does have to do with linking to the MLS, so we have to figure out how your websites are going to be working. You know, if you're gonna have a website with only your particular listings. If you only have 3 listings and you're paying for the website, I think you want the IDX so everyone can look at it. You want to do, there has to be some form of capture in there for business reasons. But if you're linking,
That's
I don't
not,
know.
that's not a bad idea. Every brokerage has their own website where all the listings are uploaded. You can share your compensation on there. It's just not on the MLS.
So now we're downloading, so now, you remember the period of time where we used to have to download our listings of like 2 or 3 different sites? And we're going, why don't we have a system where everyone just download it once and then it sends it out? Now we're back to the old system where it says, well, we have the MLS's IDX relationship, we can't do that. But now we're gonna have to have the Keller Williams download separately to the Keller Williams website or to your personal site to reflect that. Now we're gonna have to take our links and drive our links over to another site. It's really a quagmire. And again, we're still going to have to work through these. That's a good question. I'll get some clarity for you. For everybody.
Especially.
Yeah, because I know a lot of us go to a lot of trouble. We sign a lot of documentation for IDX connection. So you can connect to the websites.
Yeah.
So I know that's gonna be a big deal.
Let's get out in front of that. Let's be the first. Yeah, every listing that comes into this office needs to be put on the Keller Williams Greater Columbus website.
It's not connected.
It's not connected to the MLS. We eliminate us having to field phone calls from 1,000 other people. We just say, freaking check the website, check the website. You know what I mean? Like any kind of compensation is gonna be listed right there.
Your autoresponder is.
Yeah,
The
check,
website.
freaking done.
Why, can it go in the private remarks
I took
section
a
though?
couple notes today we had some good questions. I'm gonna run them over with Dela and Mick. And then, verbiage is one of the questions I have. You know, do we have
Yeah,
some
because
uniformity?
the class today was, okay, this is what you need to do. You need to put it in, write it in the contract, and then Rap Check that was here saying, no, you cannot do that. And we're all like, I mean, I sat in the back of the room and could see everybody's faces like, okay, so we can't put it in there, so then what do we do? Yeah,
Listen, and you don't need me loose cannon out there, freaking just writing willy-nilly into contracts, you know what I mean? Cause you're getting called left and right and you let me look splat. I'm just saying, hey.
Hey, can I tire? I'm retired at the end of the week.
It was a good time to get out, man. This might be it.
Release the crack.
Um,
but I
Is he
think that,
okay?
isn't that the thing, Mark, is that people just, they don't know. Yeah, I'm talking. We just don't know the answers. We
No.
don't know yet, and that's what,
They don't know.
right, and I think.
The courts
that-
don't know.
So why are
Correct.
we doing this?
Right.
Because it becomes the Ohio revised code and it becomes law.
Right. And we'll be far ahead of the curve by doing it now as opposed to just putting it off and not doing it.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big conversation. And I'm sure Rap Check has this constantly. We run out of power.
Yeah, I'm Tammy. You know what it's like to be Tammy Gordon and yourself at the same time? Holy crap.
Anyway. There's a lot of things we don't know, but what we do know is we need to use this and express our value proposition. The one thing that the buyers and sellers don't know is all the questions we're asking, how do you do this, how do you do that, they don't know that piece of the pie. So we have to protect ourselves by presenting the document and expressing our market value, our personal value of why I'm in business doing this. You know, it's like, I've been in business 27 years, I think I understand the value I can bring to the table. The new guy on the block, there were 1,000 new licensees to almost 1,100 new licensees this year. Believe me, there's some that are pretty sharp and there's some that are still figuring out their pencil. So we still need to there's still a lot of young people in the business and we need to support us all. But we need to know, and regardless of how long you've been in the business, we need to know our value proposition. And we need to come back all the way down to here. We have to educate our buyers and maintain our professionalism. You can't, I'm gonna tell you, there's gonna be some ticked off agents. There are gonna be some people blowing their horn.
One just left.
So, so now we're on the seller side. Okay, and this is where a good listing agent is gonna bring value to you. Now, if a good listing agent is able to say, Kathy, or I call Kathy's supervisor, administrator, what is the co-oping fee on that? She's gonna go on and, I successfully was able to convey to the seller that you're worth 3%. That's our, that, we need to do that. We really need to do that. What is the value to you as the buying agent? And if I'm a listing agent and I say that you don't have no value, and I couldn't convey your value, then what? Then what? Where do we come from? No, you know, I'm gonna say, all of a sudden, Joe, the anti-realtor, every listing he has, he just goes in and he covers his own back and doesn't bring the value, doesn't advise his client the value of a buyer's agent. You know, he's gonna advise the benefit of cooperation. So what is the value of cooperation? Now, every time I see Joe's listing, I know I'm in trouble. I know it's zero every time. There's gonna be agents out there. They're coming in, they're hitting the ground hard, and all they're doing is running. And they may hold them listings a long time. And what's gonna happen is that maybe properties will expire. And then you go on that expired listing appointment, and it's the listing agent or the seller is gonna go, well, my realtor never told me that I could offer compensation to the buyer's agent to make the transaction go smoother. Huh? You're supposed to.
I think you should do a lot of business.
Kathy Cairo did really good with that today.
She did.
Pardon me?
Kathy Cairo, as the list, we did the listing presentation. She did a really good job
Good
on
job. Good deal.
showing how referencing it and stuff, and the importance of the buyer.
I
And the cooperation between the two
Yeah.
as a buyer's agent and listing agent, and how that's so important and has value.
see, she knows how to explain compensation. Kathy does. She knows.
Co-op and compensation.
It was a very
Yeah,
good,
well, yeah. But you see, Kathy started this, what'd you say, a couple months back?
3 months ago.
3 months ago. So she started 3 months ago because, you know, now you have 9 buyers. And the clock is ticking in 2 weeks. So now you're up against the wall where you have to have these conversations before you start showing any more properties. It's a tough one. It's a tough one. We have to, you know, maybe you're gonna make 9 calls tomorrow before you go home. I mean, that might be the deal.
Correct.
If you're, and by the end, if you make 9 calls tomorrow and you get 9 signatures tomorrow, you're gonna be a master at this.
Actually, it's 11.
oh,
That's got you guys that aren't on the list.
Either that or you get them all in contract before July 1st. I mean.
So you have to
there's benefits
explain,
that.
if you're a listing agent, you have to explain how it can increase your buyer pool. Buyer pool.
Absolutely. And Kathy went over that today as well.
So it's our job to explain, and by our conversation, we are educating our client that the buyer's ability or may have the inability to finance the difference in compensation, which there you would lose a viable buyer. So, now one of the things that Bill said today from Keller Home Loans talked about the value of, you know, if the house is maybe priced at $500 and your offer is $475, it's probably better to write a 500 offer and then back in that 2-1 buy down. You know, so money's pretty powerful. Most people aren't educated on money and the power that it has and how you can use it. I mean, I would sit with Bill, I need to sit with Bill more and understand how that 2-1 works. So, you know, explain it to your clients, educate your clients about the buyer's ability or their inability to finance compensation in the deal.
How would that affect appraisals though, in a sense, because typically it's been 5 or 6% that's been added in, like in the sense of the price. So if they back that out, you know what I mean? How's that going to kind of a,
Well, if you back it out and it's outside the contract, then that your compensation agreement,
that's what I'm
well, it
saying.
needs to go to the lender. You know, they need to, because the lender needs to know. If you're marginal going in and you have to pay $15,000 outside of your down payment and the lender's closing costs, and it throws your ratios off. The lender may say you don't have you don't have the ability to do this deal.
Right.
So you have to be very careful. And then you have to have, that's where the open line of communication with the listing agent is. Hey, I just want to let you know. You know, historically, homes sold in this neighborhood for $500,000 and you have or $450, you're at 500, and you don't want to compensate the difference. We're willing to pay the 500, but we need the 2-1 buy down. And maybe have the bank show the scenario of how my buyer can buy your house at 500, but we need the 2-1 buy down money. That might be $25,000. I don't know. You know, but whatever, there's gonna be more, definitely be more paperwork to do. Because when you go to close, the title company needs to know, are you being compensated? They used to, they ask you, do you have an additional fee for on top of your commission? Most people had $295 or $395. Some agents I see have $595. Well, that's a lot of money. On top of that, and that's, you know, and now they're gonna say, do you have a commission? Period. You know, what does that look like? You think you think they're gonna get some pushback on that additional fee, which was a fluff fee, in my opinion. Not humble opinion. So, what questions do you have now?
Well, I actually have a question. So if I'm a buyer's agent and I call the seller's agent and I say, you know, what's the buyer's agent compensation? And they say 2.5%. Is that in writing anywhere? Can
How do
they
they
prove
know?
it? Or when we get to, you know, way down the road, they say, I didn't tell you it was 2.5%. I told you it was 1.
Because the
Yeah.
offer.
So how do you, because again, it's not in writing, it doesn't exist, whatever you said, I have no meaning to it.
Right.
All
So
right?
you're not.
No, you write in your offer, in the contract.
In the offer, yeah, that's what I'm saying, in the offer it is.
In the
written.
additional notes section, you put ahead.
There is another document, it's called a commission agreement, period. You could exercise that outside the agreement, but you need to have the seller sign it. You know,
Okay.
so there are some documents out there. But right now, you probably best that, all parties understand that Calaveras Greater Columbus will be compensated 2.5% of the gross sale of this
Mhm.
upon successful closing.
So if we're calling before,
I'm not sure what Scott was saying. Dude, who said that? Scott?
Scott.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure why he would say that. I mean, the way I look at it, if I have a contract with you. And I said in my contract that I am going to protect your interests. By all means, I'm gonna negotiate my commission first with the seller of the property. Right? And then if the seller, if we can't come to a good negotiations either on price, terms or condition, then you will compensate me my commission agreement. So if that's what this document says, right? Why does it not give me the right to protect this legal contract and negotiate in the purchase agreement, my commission, your commission? Right, that's the way I look at it. I'm not quite buying into Scott. And again, now we have two different opinions,
Did you hear that today too?
Yeah.
Yeah,
but I disagree with that, but I'm not gonna disagree with Scott, no, we're 50 people.
correct, yeah.
So if we're calling a showing, like we're calling before we do a showing and asking like for that like percentage for our like buyers, we're calling a listing agent, we do or do not get it in writing.
You absolutely get everything in writing.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure.
Yeah,
Because like Mark said, if it's not in writing, it never existed.
Okay,
you
Thank
know. One of the things about law is that real estate is probably one of the professions that it needs to be in writing to be bonding. There are some contracts that are upheld verbally, but it's a tough road to hoe to do that.
Okay,
So get everything in writing.
so if I have 10 showings and I have to get in writing from every realtor, every seller's agent in writing what their mission.
Just on the one that your client wants to buy.
Yeah,
Okay, but when I call you and say I wanna show the house and you say it's 2.5%.
Yeah.
But then we go to the contract and it says 1%. And you're like, well, wait a minute, you said it was 2.5%, why is it now just 1?
Yeah, that's
And
what
then you're
taxi.
screwed. What?
Taxi. Hey, Jill, I'm gonna be showing 123 Main Street. What is the
Oh.
commission? She's gonna text me back.
Okay.
Now I got a hard line.
Okay.
And then she's gonna go, well, I was wrong. You know,
Right.
these are scenarios.
Right.
I misspoke, I was out of term. My seller only wants to do 1%, so the seller had a bad day and he changed his mind.
Here's the scenario.
But
Here's the scenario.
yeah,
You've got a house listed and you're co-opting to the buyer's agent 3%. I've got as the buyer's rep contract for 3%, right? But because I want my clients to have the house, I'm gonna say in the offer, sellers offer 2.5, sellers offer 2. Now the seller gets more money, they're paying less commission, and I get the closing.
we do
Because
that now.
I don't have, we do that now, but my point is, I don't have to abide by. You said this had to be
As long as
exact,
it's less, not more,
Yeah,
right?
this could be 3%, right?
Yeah.
But now in
if
order
you're in a
to win,
competitive
If I'm in a
situation,
competitive
and I call
situation.
you, Ron, hey, you're telling me it's 3%. I'm gonna tell you I'm gonna give you full price offer, but we're only gonna put 2% of the offer because I want your client to have 1% more. So, and then you write your offer up and you send it over. So we do that now.
it's sort of,
We do that now. I mean, I'll pay your closing costs.
right, Right.
I'll waive my commission, my buyer will pay, he wants a house so bad, he'll pay my commission, pay $50,000 over the asking price. I mean, all sorts of stupid stuff is being done, stuff that doesn't make sense. So, but again, you need it in writing, because when you go to close, the title company can only put on a settlement statement what is in writing. If you don't have it in writing, you know, if you can't send over, you will need to send your commission agreement or your representation agreement over to the title company so they understand your fee structure. So this is what, you know, you think we had 105 things to do now we have 125 things to do.
especially if you have a listing. He's gonna do a lot of texting. Random numbers coming up.
So in here. The client. In here, in the agreement, in the second paragraph, it does state that the client, this agreement begins and ends. This agreement may be extended by mutual agreement, but between the parties, this agreement may be canceled prior to the end of the term. Or the extension thereof by either party within 7 days written notice. So the client terminates the agreement prior to the expiration. The client still owes compensation. So again, see, this is where you're still gonna get paid if you've got something going on. If you ever show in a house, I showed you 123 Main Street and ABC South Street. And your client terminates the agreement. In the protection period, on paragraph number 4, you're gonna say, I'm gonna have 90-day protection period. So you want to, in writing and verify, okay, if you want to terminate in 7 days, I sold you these 5 properties. I want to make sure that I'm protected for these 5 properties for the work that I've already done. I'm gonna identify these 5 properties, that if within the 90 days you buy these properties, I shall be compensated. Now, have you ever worked with attorneys?
Yeah.
That's exactly what they tell you. You buy these properties in 90 days, I'm gonna get paid. I'm coming after you. I mean, there's no compassion. Why are you terminating? Well, you know what, when you hear the whine, you know you're in trouble. Broker's obligation to the client. Now, this is, I like the way that the broker's obligation to the client is first. Because this is your opportunity. Now, remember, it's only got 1.1 and 1.2. Kathy has a 15-page booklet. So she has a little bit more value proposition than paragraph 1.1 and 1.2. Who's gonna get the deal? Kathy's gonna get the deal. I'm not gonna be, this little document is not gonna be Kathy's 15-page color brochure of how she's gonna protect her client's interest. You know what I mean? So it says, but the broker shall assist the client throughout the transaction through closing. Boring. You know, by the way, that single sentence is a 14-page document. And you couldn't figure out anything else to say besides that? You know, the real estate purchase agreement is 14 pages long. You ought to write down, this is, okay, let me explain 1.1, and then you pull out your pretty booklet, and you're gonna say, here's all the things I'm gonna protect you with. And I'm gonna tell you that there's, 21 ways a contract can die. 21 ways to leave your life. 21 ways for a contract to die. And I'm gonna protect each one of those 21 days, both on the buyer side and the seller side, because, again, tenanted inventory, oh, wow, you want the house, you want the kids to grow up in the farm. The broker shall act in the client's best interest. The client understands that the broker may be working with more than one client at a given time, and is not prohibited from representing other clients with regards to any residential property. That's another one of your value propositions. Hey, I'm working with a buyer's agent right now. I'm working with like Rondo. I've got 9 clients I'm working with right now. 3 of them in the country area of selection, and 2 of them are in the same neighborhood that you are interested in. So what this is telling me is that there's something called contemporaneous offers. And I'm gonna pull that document out and explain to them what contemporaneous offers is. So it took me 3 seconds to read the second paragraph, but I'm gonna take 15 minutes to explain that paragraph. What's my value? What is my value? Now, you, Mr. Client, the client shall work exclusively for the broker, shall work exclusively with the broker for the acquisition of real estate purchase, real estate property, will immediately identify them as clients of a broker anytime when communicating with the viewing of residential property, such as, but not limited to, attending an open house, visiting builder models, homes or construction sites, talking with a for sale by owner, or any other broker during the term of this agreement. Nobody knows what that says. I have to slow down and read it slowly. So I better explain that one. Let me tell you what this means. I know that we're looking at for sales right now, something that's already been on the market. And right now, the home building construction is up by 13%. So by chances are, there's gonna be a new home out there. I'm gonna tell you, anytime I walk into a new home, I just absolutely love it. It's brand new, it smells like the leather of a brand new car. It looks good, I can see myself sitting in the fireplace, all that stuff. Now, you need to tell the, you need to tell me, and you need to tell the representative that you are represented by an agreement by me. You need to tell them that. A for sale by owner, I don't care about. You know, the guy I was talking to today, trying to explain his value proposition from sale by owner. 800 square feet, $219,000. All the active listings right now, I can get 1,800 square feet for $198. Wonder why that house ain't selling. For sale by owner. I said, here's what I would do. Hit her right between the eyes, you're overpriced. She's either going to like you or hate you. Nobody likes to tell her overpriced, so figure out another way to do it. Anyway, we'll talk about that tomorrow with him. The client shall cooperate with the broker in locating real property. Such cooperation shall include open communication. Now, the open communication means you can call me anytime. If I can't pick up the phone and send me a text, at least I know that you got a hold of me, and I'll get back to you. The whole idea about this agreement is that you and I have a high level of trust. Is that something we could agree upon? Why are you shaking your head?
Yes,
That sounds pretty good, doesn't it?
yeah.
Yeah, so I'm gonna ask you,
Not going anywhere.
are you gonna work with me when we're looking for a house? So these are closed, these are either open-ended or closed-ended questions, right? Keller Williams has got all sorts. And if I ask you, you know, you think that we could have a relationship that built upon trust, that we carry on a high level of communication? That, period. So that's not in 2.2. But that needs to be said. And then when you go down the street, they go, remember you said you had a high level, we had a high level of trust between each other, that you would communicate with me. What went wrong? Nobody likes to be called out on the table. Well, you know, I saw it, I really liked it. Compensation means, this is where you have to go over your value. Brokers' commissions are not set by law and are fully negotiable. Let me explain what that means. This has always been the case. Our real estate commissions or broker fees or forms of compensation have always been negotiable. It's either been a percentage, a flat fee, it could have been this, could have been that, yeah. The parties agree that the obligation, so I just want to let you know that's always been. But the way the industry is changing, the state now wants us to tell you that this is how real estate agents get paid. This is how the brokers get paid. And so we want to explain that value proposition to you. And I call it a value proposition because of the services that I bring to the table and the skills I bring to the table, the experience I bring to the table. So although the seller and the seller broker may pay the compensation to the broker, the payment of such compensation by the seller or seller's broker may not in any way make the broker in this agreement the agent of the seller or sub-agent of the seller broker. That one sentence right there is the basis of the lawsuit. The listing agent of that lawsuit never told the seller that, hey, I'm going to share this, but it has no bearing about our relationship. Just said, this makes the deal. He didn't explain. That's the whole thing, communication. If the compensation is received by the broker from the seller or the seller's broker under section whatever 3.1 is equal to the client's payment obligation under this agreement, the client's obligation to the broker shall be deemed satisfied if the compensation received by the broker from the seller or the seller's broker under the section 3.1 is less than a full amount of compensation owed by the client under this agreement, the client shall be responsible for the payment to the broker of the remaining amount owed. And that's all we've been talking about, isn't it? So now that one there, that's a pretty clear paragraph. You said, do you have any questions about that one? If now, speak now, or forever hold your peace, right? Like a marriage. The broker shall not receive compensation from the seller or the seller's broker or any third party in excess of the amount owed under this section. So at least this agreement is saying that. It's already saying that. So in this agreement up here, let's say I put number 3 up here, or let's say I know that you are a $400,000 to $500,000 buyer. And I say, I'm gonna offer, all that I want is a $12,000 flat fee. Anything else we can use for closing costs, so let's say I get $15,000, we can negotiate $3,000 closing costs, knowing that I'm only gonna get paid for. You know, this it's all in the skill of negotiation. Let's say it's a new build. Other might be new build bonus offerings of $10,000. So a new build probably not going to give you 10, but might give you 5. You get rid of an inventory house. So then 5. I can't get any more than 10, but I'll take 5. I'll take 3 and 5. Yeah. Protection period. Always put something in the protection period. Don't leave it blank. And 5 days is nothing to, I would not put in there.
You said 90, right?
You know what?
You gotta keep, you have to check back though, Harry.
Some, in my commercial deals, I might put 2 years. Non-circumvent deals. You're not gonna come out with me, we're not gonna do all this work. And then you say, oh, man, Mark, I think I'm gonna hold off a little bit. Non-circumvent means you can't go around me. You have to go through me in order to make this deal happen with this client. So if you circumvent me, then I get the suit. So we can have non-circumvent agreements.
How does that work? I just did one, for example, that if I got it in contract by June 10th, which I did, the seller was willing to pay an extra $2,000 to the buyer's agent.
How much?
2.
2,000? Well, it's gotta be in here. If it's not in here, you can't take it.
But how am I gonna know that if I, like you said, you show 5 properties to somebody, you almost have to call every agent because it's going to depend on what you're gonna offer if there's closing or there's buyers, the buyer's side has any commission to it or not, because you're gonna have to then reference this, but what if, you know, I mean, it's gonna be a cluster of. And then I got this one that says it's paying, if I get it in by June 10th, I can't write that in, I have to rewrite it and have them sign a new one. Is that how that works?
Well, you might amend.
Oh, we're amending these,
You might amend.
Can amend them?
Yeah, first I'm gonna say, hey, Mr. Buyer, you know, I understand the buyer's offering,
The seller's offering it.
yeah, the seller's offering, a bonus of $5,000. I would like to amend our agreement that says other, that says that the builder is offering the broker $5,000. Is that okay with you?
That's how we wrote it in the contract, basically, that a buyer and seller agreed.
Yeah.
But theoretically, you would have to have an addendum or
Yeah.
amended or whatever.
Protection period, agency disclosure, those that were here late.
Sorry, I'm working. I made it all the way here.
I had a slide up here earlier. I said one of the top 5 violations at the Division of Real Estate is agency. Not getting it signed and not getting it signed when you're supposed to. So your company policy or agency disclosure and company policy will needs to be signed. If it's agency disclosure with the buyer or consumer guide with the buyer, and this at the same time. So you're gonna shove this in front of them, talk about the buyer's representation agreement, as well as the fiduciary duties that are bound by me by law. Of the consumer guide, so I think it's a perfect combo, it's a good communication that says that, you know, I'm held to a higher standard. You know, so that's a good time to bring that up.
Is Killer Williams gonna have any type of like slideshow, PowerPoint that you guys generically are going to make it we could modify to our own personnel that has some of the verbiage that we can use for our presentations?
Yeah,
That we can act, you know what I mean?
these, I mean, if these slides here, I could email them to you.
Okay, well, I mean, just anything coming down the pipeline that would, I mean, like Kathy has this great, you know, she'll share it with you. Oh, will she share that with me?
No, I put these two things together right here as a matter, so. This information,
I have to email you or text.
this
you.
information here is, I'm gonna tell you something. Top secret. I get this from Ohio Realtors.
Oh.
I have a document, I'm gonna send it to you. So.
Do we need to text you, so you have her contact, or you just want to sign it?
Write your email clearly,
Yes, sir.
just put your email down on that and I'll send it. Now, interesting thing, some of these agreements, you still need fair housing. Oh, it does talk about contemporaneous offers in here, number 8. So that does, as you go through this agreement with the client, you can go back to the beginning of the document itself and talk about that the 1.2 where buyers work with other people. And if we happen to see the same house at the same time, the contemporaneous offer may kick in. So that will, so that you could reiterate paragraph 1.2 is reflecting the paragraph number 8. Fair housing is still and will always be a required paragraph in documentation. It's an agency, it's a consumer guide, it's in the purchase agreements, it's a buyer's agency agreement. It's everywhere you look. Wire talks about wire fraud, always communicate that you will never tell your clients how to deliver money. That will always be a conversation one-on-one with the title escrow officer, how you do that. If there are additional terms and conditions or exclusions, sometimes it might say, well, you know, Mark, I was working with Sally Sue over at Remax and she showed me this house. I'm kind of still thinking that, you know, Sally kind of blew me off when I asked her to show me a couple houses, so I got mad at her. But I might want to write an exclusion, I might go back to Sally. Now I'm gonna do my best to figure out how to get it. Not circumvent her, but go around it.
What happens if buyers have?
I mean, sometimes
They
people
call
can
me
met
and
people, then
they
they say,
do it, you and you don't know it. They call you, say it's your listing, which happens all the time. They'll say, when I look at this house, and that you ask them, do you have a buyer's agent? Well, they can't show it to me. Or whatever the reason is, or, you know, you're gonna make them sign one before you show it. Theoretically, but what if there's 2? Then what happens when you? I mean, realistically, a lot of people don't know how all of this works.
I know.
Yeah, but Mark, so you brought up the Remax agent, do they have to do this? I'm playing devil's advocate. Do they have to have, does Remax agents have to have buyers sign this?
Everybody,
Doesn't
doesn't
everybody
everybody?
agents have to do that?
Yeah.
Everybody does. So here's what I say.
You're
Again.
going down the right path.
I've been in this business a long time. And I'm gonna tell you that I have been an agent over the course of years that have not done a buyer's agreement because it was one of those things that was so tedious and people were like, I don't know if I wanna sign that. So people just got away from doing it, right? But what I say, when Mark was going down through this, it's like, oh my gosh, everything is in here that you need to deal with people. The contemporaneous offers, how they're dealing with disputes, how they're dealing with their whatever. At some point in time, through all the documentation that we go through and we talk to with our buyers, it's all in this form. And so if every agent in the state of Ohio or nationwide has to do this, now we're all on the same level playing field. Whereas before, this has not been required and it wasn't. And so you would get people that would show properties to people that didn't sign these things. And it was, that's where it was an unlevel playing field. But now that it's going to be a level playing field, you've got to become very, very good at being able to communicate this to your buyers in a way that is not scary to them, because they're gonna have to do it with the next agent. So you have to be really good at doing this, right? And when you do it and you have the confidence with that, then getting these signed should not be the issue. All the other stuff that comes with it, what we have to do to capture how we're getting paid and all of that is, but again, it's only a tedious or scary thing right now because we are not accustomed to doing it. But when we become accustomed to doing it, and it's just the way that we do business, it'll just be the way we do business.
I'm not scared of that, it's just all the rest
You're right.
after that and making them understand, because I had a guy the other day. And since she was gone, sent me his voicemail. And it was her listing. And he's like, and I explained to him going down the road. You know what I mean? Well, I explained everything to him. And he's like, I'm not ever signing to work with one. I work with a listing agent.
Well, he's
I
gonna
said-
have to,
Yeah, I mean, and it's, are you,
regardless.
what do you recommend here? 6 months?
A year, I think.
A year?
Yeah, that's what I usually do online, is a year.
Really?
And again, it can be terminated at any time.
Mhm.
So what happens, I mean, you do need it now. Because if you don't have it, you could open yourself up to a lawsuit.
Right.
Remember, the whole lawsuit is based upon you representing and telling your client where your value is, and that's why this document, without it, you open, they, all of a sudden, something goes wrong, then they could turn around and elect to sue you. And that's not fun. One other thing I wanted to bring up, I'm looking for, this was at the legal and legislative update. Hopefully I can find it here in a second, and I'll just tell you about it. Here it is. So this is a case, I'm not sure where it happened. But this is a case, man versus Kruger in real estate. So this document is to be very clear, so if you have additional terms and conditions you want to add in here, be very clear, write them in there. You know, you're not practicing law, you know, you could have. Whatever. So what happened in this particular case? This is a new build situation. And the buyer is suing Huber Real Estate. And this is last year. The buyer was suing Huber Real Estate because they went in and first off, the buyer did have a agency, a buyer's representation agreement signed. And it talks about, you know, you have the right to have legal counsel, you have the right to do. And so what happened is that man went out and bought a house, and she says that the realtor from Huber said, that's a standard document, don't worry about it. So they move into the house, and whatever, 6 months later, the foundation starts to settle, crack, and the, you know, wall is breaking, cabinets falling, you know, whatever. It wasn't working out well for the buyer. So the buyer turned around and sued the realtor from Huber. And so at the end of the day, she's saying that my realtor did not explain the documents that I signed. Right? And so the case was all born upon the agent having the buyer's representation agreement signed. Because in there it says, you have the right for legal counsel. You have the right to have all documents reviewed by an attorney. And, you know, whether I tell you or not, that's just standard document, if you worry about that. It doesn't, I mean, it's a good thing you had it. I probably wouldn't say that. I probably would say, you know, if you'd like, it might be best for you to have an attorney look at the builder's document and make sure everything is written right. Because you ever look at a builder's document, they have funny words in it. So at the end of the day, the lady ended up spending over $100,000 to fix a house that she didn't want no more. Now she has to disclose all the imperfections in the house. I mean, it was pretty bad. And so she buy a brand new house, had to drop another $100,000 on it to fix it. But the agent and the brokerage was saved because of this document. This document alone.
She didn't sue the builder?
You should have,
And
mean-
wasn't the house under warranty?
but what happens is that when you file a lawsuit, you file it against everybody.
Okay.
And whoever has the deepest pockets wins. Or it has the worst attorney wins, you know, loses, so. So the broker ended up winning and was dismissed from the case. And, you know, left the buyer, man, to maybe go sue the builder. But it was no longer our problem and didn't cost the broker $100,000. Might have cost them $25,000 in legal fees, whatever like that. The E&O kicks in, they have the deductible, blah, blah, blah. Everything is funny. But the idea is that that agent, you know, what would happen if you were found, hey, you have to pay $100,000? Like, where's that money come from? You know, it's like. So, use this document, learn it, express your value. Part of your value proposition, like I said, the purchase contract is 14 pages. You could get with your title company, you could add in your agreement, you could discuss the different types of title. There's all sorts of things you could add value, you could create yourself a little buyer's listing presentation. But this little 5-page document is not the win all. It's all it is. It's a cookie pan. All it is a cookie cutter pan saying, hey, these are some of the things you need to go deep into you. You know who you are. Come forth on it. Again, each broker is independent and determines the services it is to provide and the commission it will charge. Talk about cooperative compensation. When a home seller hires a listing broker, the listing broker will typically include the property in a multiple listing service. And MLS is a database of homes for sale in the area. The broker that represents the buyer can search the MLS for homes that meet the buyer's criteria. This cooperation between the listing broker and the buyer's broker helps to market the seller's property to a wide audience, the widest audience as possible. The listing broker has the option to share a portion of the listing commission with the buyer broker in exchange for the buyer bringing the buyer who ultimately buys your home. So there's some of your conversation, which you can have. So. Does that help any?
There's mud,
Clear as mud?
there's mud.
So the board said, I guess what I read last, was they were making it effective with the compensation, is it August 1st now? Or sometime in August?
August 17th, the compensation in the MLS goes away.
Because originally it was July, they said, so now it's August 17th.
But July 1 is the day we start using this document.
We do.
We do,
Correct.
yeah, so that's 2 weeks.
Well, I'm gonna just have to have them sign it now, if I get any.
Right.
I'm not worried about it.
No. I guess that's all I got. But that's an hour and a half. You want me to keep going?
So your recommend, this is what we are going to use. Because I know when we first talked, it was like the Ohio one had it, and then there was another one, so this is the very updated that we should download into Dotloop.
It is.
It should be there.
It is.
Hey Kenzie, do you have any questions?
No, I'm okay.
Are you good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mark, can you send me the slides as well, please? Sue Chow.
The slides out, yeah. Let me, hold on, don't go, let me get who's on the.
Oh, wait, where did these go? Because if we don't have a loop, we do have a loop.
Don't go away, everybody.
We just put them in and. No, what, when you create the
Let
loop,
me see who's online here.
not that great on that loop. When you create the loop, the only time I create a loop. To put this in to get it from is when I'm writing an offer, but this isn't going to, this is going to be out there by itself because I.
Several people left already.
3 months.
Keep it in the loop.
All right.
I'm working with the buyer, it goes in.
Just put their name in.
Name's the buyer, yeah, that's.
Okay.
All right, I got everybody.
I'll put the address.
Okay,
Fighters.
okay, that's good.
That's just an organization and dot loop, but that's what I do. If I have a buyer, until they identify with the property, I just put their names.
All right,
Okay,
are we all good?
okay, that's what I was. Okay.
Kenzie, Jamie, Stu?
Yeah, good.
Yes, thank you, Mark.
Sorry.
All
Thank
right,
you.
all right, thanks for showing up tonight.
Thank you. Have a good night.
All right, all right. You can always get a hold of me if you have any questions. Thanks. See you tonight.
Right.